Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In this week's video, we are going to do part one of a two-part series on synth tips and tricks. Really simple, really short, get to the point. Hopefully, if you're starting out in synthesis, this might give you a better understanding of what's going on. Or if you've kind of been doing it for a while, it might kind of remind you of some techniques that you might have learnt and forgotten, or it might show you something new. Hey, there might be something for everyone, but let's get into it. So number one is to detune two oscillators away from each other. Now, if you've watched any of my videos, you would have seen I do this on almost every patch, with the exception of a few, but it's a way that you can add some thickness and some movement to your patches. So for this, we've got oscillator 1. Let's turn up oscillator 2. You can hear a kind of a chorusy sort of sound there. Now what we want to do is just detune one of the oscillators, just a hair, and you can hear when I start to detune, I'll hold the note down, that it will start to create a width and a nice richness to the sound. So there's 8 cents that I move that, not very much at all. And that's just a single note being played. You can hear we get some nice movement. Obviously, you can go too far. There's 10 cents there. You can hear that it's a nice, rich sound. Super easy to do when you're starting out. You might not know to do that step. So number 2 is using the oscillator sync on your synth. Now this is going to sync two oscillators together. In this case, it's going to be 1 and 2. Let's start with loading a initialized patch. Gives us very, very basic sound. Now we want to turn the volume up for oscillator 2. Now you can hear it's kind of giving a bit of a chorusy sort of sound. If I slightly detune, you can hear that it's detuning those two oscillators away from each other. But if we choose the sync option, which many synths do have, it just makes it a little bit louder. But with a little bit of tweaking, we can kind of get those retro 80s sort of sounds. So what we're going to do for this, we're going to use the mod matrix. And for this one, we're going to click mod, and then you can see all the options down the bottom. We're going to choose envelope generator auxiliary, and that's going to be the second one. And that's going to be for the tune amount. So we'd turn that up to, say, about 50. You can hear it's changed the sound. It's got like a little bit of attack on it. But if we come across and then start to change the envelope, that's going to modulate this tuning amount. So for this, let's choose a sustain. And you can hear there it's kind of rubbing the two oscillators together. And when I increase the attack, it's kind of giving us that old 80s vintage sort of sound. You can hear it's going up and down. So what we want to do is just increase this a little bit. We can turn up the mod now. You can hear there by just using the sync, attaching the envelope to the tune amount, we get a nice sort of 80s retro sound. This is number 3. Using some FM with your patches will allow you to get a little bit more weight and attack on the bass sounds. So we've all heard the over-the-top FM applications, especially on synths like Serum and stuff like that. But a little bit can go a long way with bass patches. So for this, I have an initialized patch. And if I come along and turn both oscillator 1 and 2 to a sine, you can hear it's a little bit low. Let's just turn up the volume just a little bit. We're going to add a filter. Add a little bit of... So we have really simple sort of sine wave. What we can do now is feed oscillator 1 into oscillator 2. And so we can go to the mod. We'll go to destination, scroll through. We're going to go 1 into 2. We're going to go to depth. So now if I increase this amount, we have the simple patch. You can hear it starting to change. If I go all the way, we can bring these both down. And then let's back off the amount of FM. So it's a simple way that you can add a little bit of FM to give some more bite and attack to your patches. Obviously, we can choose different wave shapes for the second oscillator, which is where the sound is being generated. But I like it on the sine because it's kind of that sort of, it's kind of a donk bass, but it's like donk light. Number 4, and that's to use the envelope modulation on the overall tuning to give a little bit more bite to your sounds, whether that be on peak or in this case on serum. So we have this basic sound here. And what we're going to do is come across to the mod matrix. We'll go source is going to be envelope 2, destination, global, and main tuning. So let's click over to envelope 2. Let's pull that sustain all the way down. And then we're going to put the attack up, the amount up, so you can hear what's going on. You can hear the pitch is going up to here and then slowly coming down. Well, obviously, for this demonstration, we don't want it to be like that. So we're going to pull that attack all the way down, make sure the hold's all the way down, and then we're going to get that decay. So you can hear there's a little bit of bite on there, and then I would just dial back that amount. It's a nice little way to get like a little oomph on that first attack. Number 5. Now this is one that I do on a lot of my patches, especially when I have multiple oscillators. And in Serum, it has a really good option where you can route the sub oscillator to its own destination. It doesn't have to go through all the other bits and pieces. So let's initialize the patch. We have simple 1 oscillator. Let's get a little bit of filter going. A little bit of a release on there. Now when I play kind of around middle C, it's a little bit high. So what we're going to do is we're going to use oscillator 3. You go down 1 octave from oscillator 1. We're going to change it to a sine wave. Now, as I increase this, we're going to hear the sub come in. It's going to be pretty subtle if you're using like your phone or something like that, but you can hear if I go all the way, you got a lot of weight there. Take it off. You you can hear that weight coming in. So a really easy way that if you've got a synth with multiple oscillators, you can choose one to be your sub, pitch it down 1 octave, and then just adjust the volume so it's nicely mixed in with the initial oscillator to get that desired sound. Number 6, and this is a very, very basic one, but it's a way that you can use an envelope to control the filter. Now you would have seen if you watch any of my videos that I kind of go through this, but someone might be watching this that hasn't really dived into synthesis. And I must say, from doing tech support for an audio company, I've grown to realize that not everyone is coming in with a wealth of knowledge. So this one, super simple. Feel free to skip if you're like, this is really basic, but we can just turn the filter on. And then we're going to use envelope 2 to send to that cutoff to then modulate the amount. So at the moment, if we want this to move, we have to click and hold the mouse, and it's not very fun when you're sort of playing. You kind of got to one hand bend it, playing with one hand and getting the mouse going with the other one. So what we can do, click over to envelope 2. We're going to click and drag this over to the cutoff. You can see it's giving us a nice line. And for on the peak, if you're sort of looking to see an example of that on another synth, we've got the envelope depth, and this is already hardwired. Like we've just made the modulation here. This is already hardwired. So we can see mod envelope 1. This is mod envelope 1 here. That's the amount. So this is the amount here. And then we've got the envelope, same as we got envelope 2 here. So for this, we're going to make kind of a brass sound. Let's pull down that cutoff. We want nice little slow attack on there. Let's pull up the release, pull down the sustain. Maybe a little bit more. Envelope 1, let's put a bit more release. This is the amp envelope, effectively the volume of the synth. Go back to envelope 2. We can pull down the amount again. Bit more drive. And maybe open that filter just a little bit. Really, really basic sort of stuff, but if you're starting out, this might be a little bit sort of new to you. So again, adding an envelope to a filter cutoff to kind of give us some more shapes and you can kind of go through. We could pull down that attack, get a nice stabby sound. We can pull up the attack nice and long. Kind of get more into the pad territory. Again, just using that one envelope on the filter cutoff to give us some more palette of sounds to work with. Number 7. Now, the thing that I love about the Peak is its built-in overdrive and distortion, and these are bits that I use on all the patches. Now, this is the same bass patch that we made earlier with the sub. So now we can start to add in the overdrive and distortion to push it into areas where you wouldn't usually use overdrive and distortion. Maybe you would for that for your desired style of music, but you can hear already when I add that overdrive in, it's adding the weight, and then when I add the distortion, let's pull down the volume. Now we've got these set both to max, but by doing that, by overdriving the circuit, it's giving you a sort of another palette to work with not just the clean sounds. Now, a lot of synths have these, like Serum has a built-in distortion, but then you can also use other additional things like analog heat by Electron, or some built-in distortions like the Sound Toys Decapitator. Number 8, and this is something that I am victim of all the time, and it's just using either the high pass or the low pass filters when there is so much more within most synths to work with. So for this, we have a simple patch. We got just the wavetable. We got the simple sawtooth. We're going to go into the filter. You can hear that's muted now, and we have the LFO. We have the low pass 12 on. So we're going to go across the normal. Let's go to notch 24. You can already hear there it's giving us sort of more of that, when you go into that bass register, that sort of plasticky sort of sound, which is awesome. So let's add some drive, add some fatness, pull down the resonance, and then let's just change this. We're going to make this mono. Down the K a bit. So with a simple little tweak, we've kind of got a plasticky sort of acid sound there. So this is number 9. For this, we're going to use the LFO to control a couple of elements on there. Now this is a very basic thing, but if you're starting out in synthesis, this might be new to you, or just you might have used it on a filter, but you don't really think about using it on other elements. So for this one, we have initialize patch. Let's just pull that filter down a little bit. Let's go to VCF and turn up the level. So now this envelope is going to modify or modulate the amount of filter. Go back to the VCA, which is the amplifier or the volume of the synth. Now we have a very basic sort of, like a brass sort of sound. But to add a little bit more interest and a little bit more movement, especially if you're using a plugin, this is a really good technique. So we go mod, and we're going to choose one of the LFOs. We'll go to LFO 1. And then we're going to attach it to the level of oscillator 1 and the tune of oscillator 2, just a little bit, maybe like 5. There we go. So we can turn off mod, and we're going to turn the level all the way to full. You can hear when I increase that rate, it's giving us that sort of crazy filtered sort of sound. But if we turn it all the way down so the rate's nice and low, and then we back the level off, and then we turn up oscillator 2, it's a nice way that you can add some subtle movement to your patch without being over the top. And it's really good for plugins, because plugins can be so dead on. This is kind of a way to make it more analog, if you will. Number 10. Now this is one that I kind of heard in a moderate track. I don't know if they did it, but I kind of got the desired effect with it. And that's by using key tracking on the LFO rate. And this is a way that you can get quick LFO rate up higher and then lower down in the lower register of the keyboard. So I just have a simple patch now. Turn the volume up a little bit. Now if I introduce the LFO 1 depth to the filter, we've got that just super basic. But then if I go up the keyboard, and this can feel a little bit static when it just plays the same rate of that LFO every time. So let's go to the mod matrix, choose the destination, and we're going to go... where are we? LFO1 rate. And then we're going to choose keyboard. So now, and let's increase the rate to full. Now when you can hear that rate, and then if I go higher up the keyboard, and then lower down, obviously you don't need to have it so over the top, but we can bring that down to sort of 30. And there you go. There's a simple way that you can change the rate automatically based on where you're playing the key on the keyboard.